This is Musical Talk.
Musical Talk.
The UK's independent musical theatre podcast.
Musical Talk. The UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello and welcome to this very, very special episode of Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hutson. Today you're going to be hearing two separate interviews recorded with the legendary songwriting team of Alain Boublil and Claude-Michel Schonberg, as well as the UK's biggest selling classical artist, Russell Hutson, to discuss Russell's new album, Only One Man, which features some very, very rare recordings of songs by Boublil and Schonberg. Now, there have been some developments since this interview was conducted. Most notably, in the Russell Hutson interview, you'll hear me ask Russell, would you ever play the lead role in Les Mis? And he says, you know, he thinks about it. Well, you'll hear what he says. But it has been sort of announced in the news that Russell Hutson is considering playing Jean Valjean in the West End production of Les Miserables. So it'll be interesting to see how that story pans out. But we're going to start this episode with an interview with the two most legendary songwriters of all time, the composing and lyricist team of Miss Saigon, soon to open again at the Prince Edward Theatre, the long-running Les Miserables, Martin Guerre, and loads of other shows as well. This is my interview with Alain Boublil and Claude-Michel Schonberg.
Musical Talk.
I'm sat here with arguably two legends of musical theatre, Alain Boublil and Claude-Michel Schonberg. Thank you very, very much for appearing on Musical Talk. We're here to discuss a brand new album coming out by Russell Hutson.
That's right.
The Voice, as he's known in this country. Mm-hmm. I want to ask the pair of you, when did you first discover Russell Hutson?
When he started, the first recording, when he was discovered the first time around. I was living in London at that time. I'm Alain Boublil, by the way. And I remember being amazed at hearing that kind of voice, which was very unusual at that time. That mix of opera and pop opera sounded familiar to our ears, because we have been sometimes accused, our musicals, of being pop operatic, which we took for a compliment, by the way.
Grand opera is a term I'd use.
Exactly.
I knew the name of Russell Hutson because I must say that my mother-in-law, she was a big fan of Russell Hutson. And one day I was watching on television with my wife the Piers Morgan show, and Russell was the guest. And I was listening to the story of this guy, and I said, my God, he has been through so many drama in his life and so many wonderful moments that all these together must made him a wonderful artist.
Because they say, you know, obviously he's had health issues and things, and
he had two brain tumors, and he's very reluctant to speak about it. And the last one, he practically died. He was. It's a kind of a near-death experience, practically.
You are, as regards for songwriting, you write incredibly emotional songs, and obviously him bringing life to these songs is a wonderful opportunity, isn't it, for the pair of, well, for all three of you in a way.
What's interesting that Russell came to me in January with his agent Philippe Guibous, and he said, look, I would like to do an album with your music. It means songs from the musicals and songs that you have been writing 30 years ago when you were writing songs in France, lyrics and music, and songs that if you want you can write with Alain for the album. So it's very flattering, but I was wondering how it's going to match all together. And as a matter of fact, more we are working on the album and listening to it. When we were young, we were writing pop songs, we were pop songwriter, but our universe was already mini musicals. It's the same universe, even when we take, of course, specific song from musical and real song, and songs I wrote 30 years ago, they are all part of the same world. So there is a unity, surprisingly a unity in this album that we did not, it wasn't an obligation that we're going to have it.
Did the pair of you suggest songs to Russell, or did Russell look at your entire catalogue and suggest songs that he liked?
Both, obviously. What Claude-Michel was saying is, fact, probably the common denominator is the theatricality of the song, whether they were written 35 years ago or written last week. They were already containing the germ of the theatricality of what would become Les Miserables.
And do you find that the album, when it's released, will be a sort of story, that the way the tracks are positioned in the track order?
I hope so. I think it's going to tell a story, because it seems, Russell was saying yesterday, that each of these songs kind of means something into his own life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's true by hearing the story of his life. This high emotional target you were mentioning before seems to have been more or less the arrow of his own journey through life so far. So it seems that every song is going to be, yes, a stop on the journey of what has been his life, although it's not been written for that, but it's the end result is very similar to that.
And the question I have for you, Alain, is do you write in English lyrics now, or are you able to translate? Because I always wonder how you get words to rhyme in French, and then you get the same message to rhyme in English. It's a skill that I've always been incredibly amazed by.
Well, it's not simple, because, as you know, in French you have the feminine ending, which is very puzzling for an English adapter. So it depends. I have had both experiences. Les Miserables was completely written in English by Herbert Kretzmer, when I've been the co-lyricist of Miss Saigon and of Martin Guerre. The songs that was written, music and lyrics, by Claude-Michel 35 years ago, when he used to be a performer himself in France, these songs have been adapted in English by some people that I've been meeting recently,
specifically for this album as well.
Specifically for this album. One of them being Michael Mahler, a young American lyricist, brilliant, who happens, by the way, to be working on a project for the French Revolution, our very first musical, as you know. And he's at this moment writing a first draft from the French lyrics. He's doing that on his own. And the other collaborator to this album is Charles Hart, whom you know from Phantom the Opera, and who has been writing 3 or 4 English adaptations from original French lyrics, one written by Claude-Michel only, and the other one written by me, from a new song which has been written for this album, not for Russell, because it was part of Claude-Michel's ballet, Wuthering Heights, but it's the main theme of that ballet, which has come now to life as a song, and which Russell will be creating.
What's it like hearing these songs you wrote a long time ago? Obviously, you've had an orchestra in and things. Did you ever feel you would ever hear these songs done again?
When Russell asked me to produce the album, and when I say yes, it means that you must have a strong vision that what you want to achieve. So I knew exactly what I wanted in advance. So of course what's happening here in the studio, it's not a big surprise for me. It's so long ago. It's 30 years, so I'm not linked to those songs the way I could have been linked if it was written 2 days ago. It was the same thing that when we did the movie of Les Mis, we wrote the show 30 years ago, so we're very free to demolish our structure and to rebuild it for the movie, because it's not a brand new work that you have not been detached yet. I have a lot of distance with my song, and I knew what I wanted exactly in English, the sound, the performance, and the lyrics adapted from the French, with that French spirit, but in English too. And it's not obvious because it's quite delicate to achieve it, but I knew exactly what I want.
Is this album a chance to give fans of Boublil and Schonberg and Russell new songs, or is he revisiting, the classics like I Dreamed a Dream and
No, he's not revisiting I Dreamed a Dream to start with. He's only revisiting Bring Him Home. He's revisiting from Martin Guerre Here Come the Morning and Live With Somebody You Love, the love duet, which I must say I have rewritten recently, only 5 or 6, 7 years ago. So it would be the first or the second version as a love duet. He's been revisiting from Miss Saigon, Too Much One Heart, which is a song which is not in Miss Saigon under this title, but which has become a song called Please in Miss Saigon, is a duet. So this is the original lyrics, which is only done by some people in concert, but it's not in Miss Saigon. So even then, it's a special approach to the song that he's revisiting.
Beautiful song as well. We heard it last night for the first time when Russell
Yes.
performed it. And I actually went home and watched the Miss Saigon documentary.
And you've seen it?
And
it was in the
and
song.
there was a tiny
It
clip
was
of
in the documentary. And yeah, because at that time, that's how the song was called. You are talking when Lea Salonga was cast. Yeah, of course. There are 5 songs which have never been heard in England, music and lyrics by Claude-Michel, at the time when I was used to be one of the producers of the album of Claude-Michel as a performer. And mainly one of these songs was a million record seller in France, called Le Premier Pas. And it's called in English To Break the Ice, with the lyrics by Michael Mahler. And it may reproduce, I think, after I've heard the final recording, it may reproduce the same saga, I hope at least. But it has every quality to do that. And to answer your question before, I never thought I would one day hear that song in English. So it's, to me too, a wonderful surprise and satisfaction. As far as the song we've been writing together, there is one complete new song written very recently.
Was that with Russell in the room? Did you work on it with him to match his voice? Or do you know his voice so well that you were able to know the range and the
No,
key?
we walked transatlantic way. I live in New York, and Claude-Michel sent me the music, and I knew Russell was going to sing the song. And obviously, you know that you can afford every high notes, every high sound, and it's a joy to write a simple, intricate song, I would say, for him, with an Italian melody, which Claude-Michel has written, which could have been an anthem for anyone with that kind of voice, but especially for him, because his story dictates some seriousness on every song.
Sometimes we can imagine, and even in the show, a lot of critique, because remember that when we released Les Mises or Miss Saigon, they used to tell us that kind of simple music melody, that's why we're quoting it, at the beginning, but kind of Europop style. And when you enter inside the song, you realize that it's not as simple as it means. It might be efficient, but it's quite, and even when I work with the musician here, they were complaining that it's quite sophisticated the way it's written. It sounds quite simple and humble, but at the same time, behind what's happening, it's quite complicated. And it's a little bit, so that song is a little bit like that. It comes like something natural in the air, and there is plenty happening underneath.
How has it been working in the studio? I mean,
That's more a question for Claude-Michel.
Studio, it's something we used to do. We started by being a record producer when 30, 40 years ago, the first time we met. And we produce all the records from our shows at the same time. But it's a long time we have not been doing it. I think the last album we produced was Pirate Queen and Marguerite back in 2008. Okay. Since I've been doing some recording of ballet score and stuff like that, but for a singer in I don't know 20 years, it's the first time that I'm back in a studio to produce a pop album with a singer, and it's a very good feeling because I'm back to my youth when we used to produce a lot of albums for all the dogs and horses singing in Paris in those days.
It's almost as if your career's come full circle now, because you're visiting the songs that you wrote.
Forget the dogs and the horses, because they were not great singers always.
You're revisiting songs you wrote earlier when you were, working in studios with singers and things. So it must be incredibly humbling for you to be very
yes, at the same time, the process is the same when we have a new production of a show. When we did the 25th anniversary tour of Les Mises, what we wanted is the audience to feel that the show was written 1 year ago.
It felt like that exactly, wasn't it?
Yeah, so for the song it's the same. There are songs I wrote in 74, 80, or even the song from the show. It's revisited, it's exactly the same, but you can imagine that they have been just written a few months ago.
This might sound strange. What is the appeal of your songs to you?
You don't know what song you have been writing until the day you have an audience. It's the audience will tell you what you have been.
They're the final collaborator.
Yeah, of course. You don't know. You're always trying to be at your best when you're writing something. Can be a success or a failure, but you're trying always to be at your top, at the top of your capacities. So why Les Misérables is such a success? We have some answers, but at the same time there is always that part of magic, and which is the most interesting part of it, because we're not working with a safety net. We don't know. Alain used to say something that I always quote, that he said, when people are doing revival of Les Mis, it's like a car. You have a Rolls Royce, you change the color of the leather or the handle of the door, but you still have a Rolls Royce. When we're doing something completely brand new like this album or a new show, you don't know if you're building a Citroën 2CV or a Ferrari car. It's the audience will tell you what kind of car you have been building after.
And I do want to mention briefly the Miss Saigon revival that's coming up. Will we hear any songs that Russell is providing on any old songs in the show?
No, not Russell. There is a new song in Miss Saigon, which I hope melts as perfectly as Claude-Michel was describing a minute ago. And I think it does, from the shows I've seen in Holland and in other countries where this show has been tried out. I mean, the new production. Russell is not singing Maybe, which is the new song in Miss Saigon. It's a song for Ellen, the American wife. Mm-hmm. So, no, it would have been traumatic to turn it to a men's song.
And it must be exciting for you to see shows that you wrote be redone in your lifetime, because that rarely happens.
That's starting to happen seriously. Well, last weekend there was a new production of Miss Saigon starting in Washington, which I hear was quite interesting, like in a backlot of a garage in America or something like that was the set. A kind of Full Metal Jacket version of Miss Saigon. Because
that's the thing with operas can be set in the future or set in the past, but very rarely happens with musical
opera is really in the hands of directors, because the authors are dead. So it's not exactly the same. As long as we are here, we're not going to allow the version in rock and roll, punk version of Les Miserables and all that. This is won't happen in our lifetimes.
No.
But I mean, some versions are happening, very few. But again, in Washington, I remember seeing a version of Les Miserables directed by Eric Schaeffer, the same director, all black and white. It was very exciting. Suddenly,
the illustrations and all.
The Thénardier. No, but the costumes. It was in color. I mean, there was light, but the lights were doing movements in such a way that you felt like it was a black and white movie. It was very interesting. The Thénardier singing Master of the House, nearly black and white, became really dark and funny at the same time. You didn't know if you could laugh or not. It was very interesting.
In relation to that, Claude-Michel, did you look at any of the arrangements of the songs and switch tempos and look at the style of the pieces and work out how to do new things for the album?
I've been working with Simon Hale on the orchestration, and of course we listened a lot to the original orchestration. We didn't want it to sound the same way, but the spirit must be respected. The tempo are not exactly the same. And as I told you, it's the same problem that to have brand new orchestration, and there is something timeless at the same time, but you have the feeling that they are very fresh and very brand new songs. So, but of course I've been working each department, the choice of the engineer, of the musician and everything, the way we proceed, it's all for good reason.
How far into the album are you now?
We're recording Russell's voice, and after we'll start the mix, and hopefully we'll be finished by the end of September.
Musical Talk.
You just heard from Alain Boublil and Claude-Michel Schonberg, and I'm sat here now with Russell Hutson. Hello, Russell. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Tired, I hear, is the theme.
Yeah, we had a very late session last night in the studio. We got two of the songs in the bag, and we're all very pleased about it. It was amazing because as a producer, Claude-Michel is really quite fantastic.
Now, I asked the question to Claude, Michel and Alain as to where they found your voice. But where did you... What's your first experience with their work?
I think, to be fair, I'd seen Miss Saigon before I saw Les Mis. I've seen Les Mis a few times in London and the United States. So that was probably where I first familiarised myself with them. Obviously, Les Mis has gone on to do incredible things. It's doing all right
for itself around the world.
Yeah, and the movie, of course, recently, which was also a huge success internationally and in the United Kingdom, just further stabilises the Les Mis story.
You contacted Claude-Michel about this album, didn't you?
No, that wasn't actually... No. Well, no, it was... It was quite an organic process because it was originally suggested by my manager, who I just... That's right, yeah. We'd literally just started working together, Philippe and I. I changed my whole team at the end of last year, management, agents. I just wanted a fresh outlook with regards to my career. So I made a few changes and I introduced a new manager to the team called Philippe Jabous. He's done an absolutely amazing job, and it was his suggestion. He rang me up this particular day, and he said, "Hey Russell, I've had this idea about we could make a record with Claude-Michel, Schonberg, and Alain Boublil, the guys that wrote Les Mis." I says, "Yeah, I know they are." He says, "What do you think?" I says, "Yeah, I might just go out for a pint with Obama tonight as well, down the local." That's how realistic I thought it was.
Because they're notoriously private, aren't they, as regards their
yes, they are.
And their work and stuff.
You see somebody like Andrew Lloyd Webber, who's very open and very public about what he does, and he's a very, very wealthy and very successful and famous man. Whereas Boublil and Schonberg are probably the polar opposite of that. They're obviously wealthy and successful, but they're very personal and very quiet about how they go about their business. So to be involved with these guys and to have their endorsement and for them to be, chatting to you and kind of flagging this up is really quite something.
It's obvious I scratch your back, you scratch mine in the case of it, because you're incredibly successful as well. I mean, they wouldn't do it for somebody who's just left drama college, would they? So a lot of it's down to you, I'd say, Russell, as well.
I think predominantly what Claude-Michel saw in me because we met for the first time. I went down to his house, and when we met, what he said to me, the first thing he said to me was, "What do you want from me?" Which is sort of like an interesting opening gambit, because what did I want from him?
I feel like you should be asking him that question.
Yes. What do I want from you? Well, your endorsement, of course, would be amazing, and to work with you and the guys who wrote the most successful musical in the history of the world, writing new material for me would be amazing. We don't write new material. He says you can have access to our catalogue, but we don't write new material.
So who pushed them to do new material?
Me.
And who pushed Claude-Michel to be the producer?
Claude-Michel suggested. Claude-Michel actually wanted to be the producer of the record. After he kind of asked me what I wanted from him, and I flowered him up and said, "I want this, that and the other," as you do. He said, "Tell me about you." He said no to writing new material, which was, I've got to admit, at the time I was a bit disappointed, because I was hoping for the greatest composers on the planet of the musical Les Mis to write me something brand new and exclusive. "Tell me about you." So I went through my A to Z of, born in Salford, son of a factory worker, struggled.
I dreamed the dream, essentially.
Yeah, Billy Elliot with bells.
Billy Elliot.
Yes, very good. Thank you. You're welcome.
Feel free to steal it.
No, I will do. But it was. My background was not what you would normally expect from somebody that's involved in the genre that I'm involved in. There was a lot of struggles, a lot of trials, a lot of tribulations. I've had incredible highs and then catastrophic lows with the illnesses that I've had, the tumours. And I've managed to come back from all that. And I think Claude-Michel you asked me why they chose me. I think they chose me because I think they see me as somebody that's seen a lot of life.
You're a mini musical, I think, is
yes.
the sort of way they looked at it as.
I think they saw me as somebody that would be able to relate to the music and the lyrics that they've written, because I've had so much diversity in my life.
You are a performer, and you can only get so much performance from an album, so there is a show going of this sort of conceived and directed. And
yes.
Is it produced by Claude-Michel as well?
It will be being produced by Claude-Michel. His son's going to be involved in that as well. Well, what I can share about it is it's going to be completely different to anything that I've done before on tour. I've had a staple diet of repertoire spanning 13 years of recording, so basically 10, 11 albums worth of recordings. And each year I've spawned new material, which has all been mainly covers of other composers. And I've been doing that now for the past 13 years on tour in the UK, and I want to do something different. So we're specifically designing a show that will encapsulate the entire record, and we'll be inserting highlights from some of Schonberg and Boublil's greatest hits and successes. The show in essence will run almost like a storybook from start to finish, and again there'll be all the amazing bells and whistles that you'd expect from a production of that type.
And was that part of the deal, or was that something that came later on in the creative process?
In the creative process, the whole thing has been really quite organic, and that's what I've enjoyed most about this, is none of it felt preconceived. It all felt like it was just happening naturally. Claude-Michel came up with, was just constantly, he's a very, very clever and very intuitive man, and what he was doing was he was watching, whilst he was watching me performing and rehearsing the songs, the new material, he'd say, there was one of the particular songs, he says, I see this song as the opener. I see this song as the opener for the show. He says, and what we're going to do is you will have the piano on the left of the stage. We will hit the piano with the spotlight. You will be in darkness.
Don't give it away.
No. Sorry.
I mean, it's almost as if Cameron has rubbed off on him.
Yeah, but I think when you're working with great music impresarios, if they don't rub off on you, then you might as well not be working with them. If you don't learn something from musical genius, then, or genii would be the collective term, wouldn't it? If you don't learn anything from these people, then you might as well not be working with them. I mean, I've only been working now with Claude-Michel for a few weeks, and already I've learned a huge amount about how to make records, about how to...
Storytelling and...
Yes.
Do you think we'll ever see you in Les Minutes? Is that something you'd like to do? To go into a show by Boublil and Schonberg?
It's always been something that I've considered. I think there's two roles that I would, if I was going to play any roles in the West End, there's two roles immediately that spring to mind, and that would be the Phantom and Jean Valjean. Jean Valjean is, to me, the ultimate lead role, because it's incredibly...
It's two roles, really, isn't it? Because he's two characters. He's the baddie at the beginning,
yes,
he's the goodie at the end. You know?
Yeah, but it again, I can relate a lot to the Valjean struggle, you know, because it's a series of triumphs and tragedies, and so I can relate very much to the Valjean story, and that's why I think it would be a role that, you know, I could really get my teeth into. I've already started to look at it. It's a fantastic piece of music.
You were up till 2 a.m. this morning working, and
yes.
Tell me about Claude-Michel as a producer.
It's remarkable. I don't want to be in any way disrespectful to anybody that I've worked with before in the past, because they've all done an amazing job, but Claude-Michel is drawing something from me that I didn't even know was there, which is remarkable, because I genuinely think, there's nothing I can be told. I've been recording artists for 13 years. I can't be told anything. I know everything. Not even close. This guy has drawn so much out of me. It's amazing. There's just one little instance. There was a song I was singing. It's called Too Much for One Heart. It's
good album title, by the way, if you're looking for one.
It's a very good album title. It's a beautiful piece of music about the birth of a newborn baby, and I'm singing it. And there's quite a big section in it, and then it goes quite delicate.
This was a cut song from Miss Saigon, isn't it?
It was, yes.
Beautiful.
Why they cut it, I do not know, but it's absolutely stunning. And I'm singing the song, and Claude-Michel says, "It's very nice, Russell, very nice." I said, "Thank you." He came in, and he put his arm around me, and we walked to the back of the room, and he sat down, and he sat down. And he looked in my eyes, and he said, "I want you to imagine this is the birth of your newborn child, and you're holding this child in your arms. And when you look into the eyes of this child, you see the reflection of your soul in the child's eyes. And that's what I want from you."
And it worked.
And it worked.
The delightful Russell Watson there, following my interview with Alain Boublil and Claude-Michel Schonberg, discussing Russell's new album Only One Man, which is released on November the 11th. And for more information you can visit www.russellwatson.com. Russell Watson also has a show coming up at the Preston Guildhall in Preston. Thank you very, very much for listening to this great episode of Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hutson. Please do follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/musicaltalk, or like us on Facebook at facebook.com/musicaltalk. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.